Hello and welcome back to Exploring the Master Key System Teachings through Positively Taking Care. In this video, we'll be covering part 14 of the Master Key System, where Charles Haanel elaborates on why it's so important for us to acquaint ourselves with universal intelligence. He shares an in-depth look into matter, molecules, and electrons' relationship to mind, and he also shares why he calls God infinite or universal mind, and he shares why the subconscious is the same in kind of this mind, only difference being in degree. Welcome back to Exploring the Master Key System Teachings Part 14. To begin, we're going to start with a brief introduction at the beginning of Part 14, and it reads like this. You have found from your studies thus far that thought is a spiritual activity and is therefore endowed with creative power. This does not mean that some thought is creative, but that all thought is creative. This same principle can be brought into operation in a negative way through the process of denial. The conscious and subconscious are both two phases of action in connection with one mind. The relation of the subconscious to the conscious is quite analogous to that existing between a weather vane and the atmosphere. Just as the least pressure of the atmosphere causes an action on the part of the weather vane, so does the least thought entertained by the conscious mind produce within your subconscious mind action in exact proportion to the depth and feeling characterizing the thought and the intensity with which the thought is indulged. It follows that if you deny unsatisfactory conditions, you are withdrawing the creative power of your thought from these conditions. You are cutting them off at the root. You are sapping their vitality. Remember that the law of growth necessarily governs every manifestation in the objective, so that a denial of unsatisfactory conditions will not bring about instant change. A plant will remain visible for some time after its roots have been cut, but it will gradually fade away and eventually disappear, so the withdrawal of your thought from the contemplation of unsatisfactory conditions will gradually but surely terminate these conditions. You will see that this is an exactly opposite course from the one which we would naturally be inclined to adopt. It will therefore have an exactly opposite effect of the one usually secured. Most persons concentrate intently upon unsatisfactory conditions, thereby giving the condition that measure of energy and vitality which is necessary in order to supply a vigorous growth. And now to go over the basic concepts of Part 14, starting with why it's so important for us to acquaint ourselves with universal intelligence. Mr. Haanel writes, the universal energy in which all motion, light, heat, and color have their origin does not partake in the limitations of the many effects of which it has the cause, but it is supreme over them all. The universal substance is the source of all power, wisdom, and intelligence. To recognize this intelligence is to acquaint yourself with the knowing quality of mind, and through it to move upon the universal substance and bring it into harmonious relationships into your affairs. This is something that the most learned physical science teacher has not yet attempted, a field of discovery upon which he has not yet launched. In fact, but a few of the materialistic schools have ever caught the first ray of this light. It does not seem to have dawned upon them that wisdom is just as much present everywhere as are force and substance. Some will say, if these principles are true, why are we not demonstrating them? As a fundamental principle is obviously correct, why do we not get the proper results? We do. We get results in exact accordance to our understanding of the law and our ability to make the proper application. We secured no results from the laws governing electricity until someone formulated the law and showed us how to apply it. He then includes that mind is creative and the principle upon which this law is based is sound and legitimate and inherent in the nature of things. But this creative power does not originate in the individual, but in the universal, which is the source and fountain of all energy and substance. The individual is simply the channel for the distribution of this energy. The individual is the means by which the universal produces various combinations which result in the formation of phenomena. Mr. Haanel next shares an in-depth look into matter, molecules, and electrons' relationship to mind. As he continues in stating, we know that scientists have resolved matter into an immense number of molecules. These molecules have been resolved into atoms and atoms into electrons. The discovery of electrons in high vacuum glass tubes containing fused terminals of hard metal indicate conclusively that these electrons fill all space, that they exist everywhere, that they are omnipresent. They fill the material bodies and occupy the whole of what we call empty space. This, then, is the universal substance from which all things proceed. Electrons would forever remain electrons unless directed where to go to be assembled into atoms and molecules, and this director is mind. A number of electrons revolving around a center of force constitutes an atom. Atoms unite in absolute regular mathematical ratios and form molecules, and these unite with each other to form a multitude of compounds which unite to build the universe. The lightest known atom is hydrogen, and this is 1,700 times heavier than an electron. An atom of mercury is 300,000 times heavier than an electron. Electrons are pure negative energy, and as they have the same potential velocity as all other cosmic energy, such as heat, light, and electricity and thought, neither time nor space required consideration. He continues on as he writes, electrons manifest in the body as cells and possess mind and intelligence sufficient for them to perform the functions in the human physical anatomy. Each part of the body is composed of cells, some which operate independently, others in communities. Some are busy building tissues, while others are engaging in forming various secretions necessary for the body. Some act as carriers of material, others are surgeons whose work is to repair damage, others are scavengers carrying off waste, and others are constantly ready to repel invaders or other undesirable intruders of the germ family. All these cells are moving for a common purpose, and each one is not only a living organism, but has sufficient intelligence to enable it to perform its necessary duties. It is also endowed with sufficient intelligence to conserve the energy and perpetuate its own life. It must therefore secure sufficient nourishment, and it has been found that it exercises choice in the selection of this nourishment. Each cell is born, reproduces itself, dies, and is absorbed. The maintenance of health and life itself depend upon the constant regeneration of these cells. It is therefore apparent that there is mind in every atom of the body, and this mind is negative mind, and the power of the individual to think makes him positive, so that he can control this negative mind. This is the scientific explanation for metaphysical healing, and will enable anyone to understand the principle upon which this remarkable phenomenon rests. This negative mind, which is contained in every cell of the body, has been called the subconscious mind because it acts without our conscious knowledge. We have found that this subconscious mind is responsive to the will of the conscious mind. All things have their origin in mind, and appearances are the result of thought, so that we see that things in themselves have no origin, permanency, or reality. Since they are produced by thought, they can be erased by thought. Mr. Haanel finally continues as he explains why he calls God infinite or universal mind, and adds how the subconscious is the same in kind of this mind, the only difference being in degree. As he writes, in mental as in natural science, experiments are being made, and each discovery lifts man one step higher towards his possible goal. we find that every man is a reflection of the thought he has entertained during his lifetime. This is stamped on his face, his form, his character, his environment. Back of every effect, there is a cause, and if we follow the trail of its starting point, we shall find the creative principle out of which it grew. Proofs of this are now so complete that this truth is generally accepted. The objective world is controlled by an unseen and heretofore unexplainable power. We have heretofore personalized this power and called it God. We have now, however, learned to look upon it as the permeating essence or principle of all that exists, the infinite or universal mind. The universal mind, being infinite and omnipotent, has unlimited resources at its command, and when we remember that it is also omnipresent, we cannot escape the conclusion that we must be an expression or manifestation of that mind. A recognition and understanding of the resources of the subconscious mind will indicate that the only difference between the subconscious and the universal is one of degree. They differ only as a drop of water differs from the ocean. They are the same in kind and quality. The difference is one of degree only. Can you appreciate the value of this all-important fact? Do you realize that the recognition of this tremendous fact places you in touch with omnipotence? The subconscious mind being the connecting link between the universal mind and the conscious mind. Is it not evident that the conscious mind can consciously suggest thoughts which the subconscious mind will put into action? And as the subconscious is one with the universal, is it not evident that no limit can be placed upon its activities? A scientific understanding of this principle will explain the wonderful results which are secured through the power of prayer. The results which are secured in this way are not brought about by any special dispensation or providence, but on the contrary, they are the result of the operation of a perfectly natural law. There is, therefore, nothing either religious or mysterious about it. So I want to stop here for a second and just give my opinion on the matter, that when he's talking about it's not religious, he's talking about the power of prayer, not prayer itself, and that all religions have their act of prayer or their practice of prayer that they add into their teachings. So I would say that prayer is definitely religious. However, he's saying that the power and the science behind it is not religious. And that's why it works in so many different religions, to my understanding. He then goes on to say, yet there are many who are not ready to enter into the discipline necessary to think correctly, even though it is evident that wrong thinking has brought failure. Thought is the only reality. Conditions are but the outward manifestation. As the thought changes, all outward or material conditions must change in order to be in harmony with their creator, which is thought. But the thought must be clear-cut, steady, fixed, definite, unchangeable. You cannot take one step forward and 2 steps backward. Neither can you spend 20 or 30 years of your life building up negative conditions as a result of negative thoughts and then expect to see them all melt away as the result of 15 or 20 minutes of right thinking. If you enter into the discipline necessary to bring about a radical change in your life, you must do so deliberately after giving the matter careful thought and full consideration, and then you must allow nothing to interfere with your decision. This discipline, this change of thought, this mental attitude will not only bring you material things which are necessary for your highest and best welfare, but will bring health and harmonious conditions generally. If you wish harmonious conditions in your life, you must develop an harmonious mental attitude. Your world without will be a reflection of your world within. And now for the study guide questions for part 14, starting with 131. What is the source of all wisdom, power, and intelligence? Answer: the universal mind. 132. Where do all motion, light, heat, and color have their origin? Answer: in the universal energy, which is one manifestation of universal mind. 133. Where does the creative power of thought originate? Answer: in the universal mind. 134. What is thought? Answer: mind in motion. 137. What is the first form which universal takes as far as we know? Answer: electrons, which fill all space. 140. What is the result of a harmonious mental attitude? Answer: harmonious conditions in life. Thought, immaterial though it may be, is the matrix that shapes the tissue of life. For your exercise this week, concentrate on harmony. And when I say concentrate, I mean all that the word implies. Concentrate so deeply, so earnestly, that you will be conscious of nothing but harmony. Remember, we learn by doing. Reading these lessons will get you nowhere. It is the practical application that the value consists. So that concludes Exploring the Master Key System Teachings Part 14. Please remember to share your insights, thoughts, and opinions in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.